Welcome to the Motivated Martial Arts Podcast. Your hosts, Jackson White and Gavin Cook, have been friends and Taekwondo training partners for over 40 years. This podcast will bring you a mixture of their life stories, martial arts, and business experiences to motivate you in life and throughout your martial arts journey. Adding in a mixture of inspiring interviews and some of the best traditional martial artists around today. So over to your hosts, the Motivated Martial Artists.
So I'd like to welcome Tony onto the show. Hello, Tony. How are you doing this morning? Or this afternoon?
Very good, thanks. This afternoon. Yeah, thanks, boys. Thanks, Gavin, Jackson. Thanks for having me on. Yeah, I've been looking forward to having a chat.
No, it's great. I'm great. Thanks for taking the time out as well, out of your busy schedule to come on. What time is it over in Oz?
It's 3 o'clock now, just after 3. 10 past 3 now.
And the sun's shining by the looks of things.
Mate, it was a beautiful day. I've been out fishing 50 kilometres off the coast. Caught a big 10-kilo jewfish and having fish for dinner.
Oh, sounds good. Right, well, I'm sure we'll get some of your fishing stories later on in the interview. Can you give us a bit of kick off then? Can you give us a bit of an insight into your early life, your childhood, and basically how you got into martial arts?
Yeah, sure. Well, like a lot of people back in the, what would have been 70s and early 80s, we're into Bruce Lee and Chuck Norris and Jackie Chan, as I'm sure you guys were. My mate, who was a neighbour, said, do you want to go and try one of these classes? It's like what we watch on the movies. I went, yeah, sure. And I was heavily into athletics back in the day. So I was I love to run fast and hurdles and, sprinting and jumping events. So I was really that kind of explosive kind of person. And once I did my first class and with the kicking, with all the kicking, I just thought, this is me. I love this. And I never looked back. That was 37 years ago now,
So how old were you then, Tony?
I was 12 when I started.
Okay, cool.
So, yeah. And it was, so hang on, what year was that? 1982. It was 82, yeah.
Okay, and was that a Taekwondo school or just a general martial arts class?
No, it was actually Taekwondo. It was at the high school that I was going to. I just started first year in high school, year 8. Yeah, my mate said, it's down at the high school. I went, let's do it. And I just loved it. I loved it. It's something unique about Taekwondo, the way with the kicking, with the dynamics of the kicking and, but also being that sort of young teenager, just learning to tie a belt was intriguing. You know what I mean? Like the knot. I wish more people could do it, mind you.
So when you first started, was it the Taekwondo that you went for originally, or was it just because that was a school that was available to you?
Sorry, I missed that. Jack.
Sorry, yeah. So was it the Taekwondo that drew you because it was at your school, or was that the only school that was available to you? Or did you have a pick of different types of martial arts?
No, I never had a pick. It was just my friend just said, let's go and try this out. So I had no idea what I was going to, and it was just by chance that it was Taekwondo. And my first instructor was a New Zealander. He was a Kiwi by the name of Murray Dean, and he was just a average kind of an instructor, really lovely bloke. His heart was in the right place, and yeah, he was not an intimidating kind of character. So he was pretty nurturing, and we just had a small club, and it just went from there. He then invited me to go into a tournament, and I went in my first state championships at I think it was the end of the year that I started, and I think I was a blue belt then. Because back in those days, we were an ITF. It was originally ITF. My original master instructor was Sotpong Kim, and he was a 7th dan at that point, and he was ITF. And then it all changed over to WTF, It was all pretty political, really, with the Korean government and wanting to get it into the Olympics and all that,
So what? It's interesting because we had a guest on the other day, and they was talking about obviously. I think it was Ralph. You know Ralph a minute, don't you?
Yeah, very well. Yeah,
he was.
Top bloke.
He was. Yes, and he was saying that when he first started, it was a WTF club, but they actually did ITF pattern. I don't know if it was a similar sort of thing for you.
Oh yes, that's exactly right. Because the when they originally spread around the world, all the Koreans, they were teaching the ITF patterns because that's the original Taekwondo. And then I suppose they had some kind of a political movement or a plan where, you know, they wanted to get in the Olympics. And so then everyone started playing the Olympic style rules. And that's what we did. And then there was a period of change where we then had to learn all new patterns. And, you know, the patterns, the WTF patterns, or WT patterns as it's called now, are nowhere near as difficult, or I believe, and nowhere near as interesting as the ITF patterns. ITF patterns are much harder and are much better for developing technical skill in kicking, I think. Okay. But, you know, now that I'm 51, I'm kind of glad that we do WTF patterns because it's easier.
That's all you do now then, in between fishing.
That's right. That's right.
So how did you get on your first competition? Can you remember?
Yeah. I mean, you probably remember what it's like when you don't have a clue. You jump around and well, you jump around and you're kicking about a metre away from the person and not making much contact, or you're either a metre out the way, or you're kneeing them or hitting them with your shins because you don't have any understanding of distance, and it's all just complete adrenaline dump. I remember that, but I think I had four fights in my first. It was a state championship, and I won it. I remember busting my little finger. You guys have got me on video, so you can see that wonky finger.
Yeah.
And that was from my first ever tournament, and I should have got something done about it, but I just didn't think. Yeah, that was my first one. I had 4 fights, jumping around, not knowing what I was doing. My feet were all busted up at the end, and it hurt at the end. But I just loved it. I loved the adrenaline of it, you know, and the fear that you had, kind of the nerves, and just getting out there and being explosive and just throwing the kitchen sink at the person in front of you, and somehow you come out with a win.
It's all in those early days, you know. It's all a bit hectic, isn't it? Because you're learning the different skills. All you're doing is you're fighting on instinct, basically, with a few moves that you know, and always your go-to moves. You can imagine. You know, certainly, you see a lot of young fighters coming up, or novice fighters, and they really they're out there running on adrenaline, lots of fear, and they're just doing what their instincts are telling them on their go-to moves. And they're not really thinking of their footwork, their distance. You know, it's all basic instinct.
That's right. Well, they don't have the experience, you know, so they don't know how to piece it together. And you know, there is no substitute for experience. Sure, there's always the exception to the rule where you see a competitor who gets in and just blitzes in their first competition, but actually looks really good as well. But that is so rare. That's like, you know, not even a 1%.
Rare talents, aren't they? Rare talents.
It's normally the flexibility side, isn't it? You see, like, say, what belt did you say you were, Tony, when you did your first competition? A blue belt, was it?
I was I was a green belt. I think I was I was a green belt when I first competed, not blue. I went to my first nationals as a blue belt. That's right. Yeah.
But you tend to rely a lot on your hands on a lot of the early sort of belt grades. You know, yellow belts and the green belts. You see them doing these. You know, they rely on their hands a lot and throwing these odd googly kicks that don't ever hit the target.
Yeah. Oh yeah, sure. Because you know it's more natural to throw your hands, and you know, working out how the legs fit in, even when you've being taught the technique, it takes a while to put that together. But see, back in the day when I started, there was the only punch you threw was to the chest protector. There was nothing else. And you know, we didn't have head guards back then, no shin guards. The rest was just trying to land kicks. And it was really tough, really difficult.
So it was a WTF style competition, your first competition then?
Yeah. Oh yeah, we were, you know, we got brought up with the ITF patterns, and then about would have been just before my black belt, I think, we changed over to the WTF patterns, and the competition was always the Olympic style competition, and then we started doing the semi-contact, the ITF style in 1991. That was when I first came over to the TAGB Open World Championships was 91, and we've never fought those rules before.
I remember seeing you and your team there at the 91 Championships. If I remember correctly, there was a chap. if you could think back, there was a part of the competition, there was a breaking part of the competition where you had to like jump in front kicks off like a really, they held a board really high by this like, almost like a curtain pole prop type thing. And I'm sure there's your guys that was doing backflips through it. There was breaking and there was doing flips.
No, that was 90. You're thinking of 94. At the Open Worlds in 94, we did a demo, and my business partner Rodney Lockyer.
He's a chap with long hair.
He had long hair back then, and he did a backflip board break as part of the competition. Part of the demonstration.
I definitely remember seeing you and your team there doing it. Yeah, for sure.
That was 94.
Was it Granby Halls in Leicester, I think?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's when Jim Grogan did his Elvis pattern.
What was that one?
That was the year that Jim Grogan did his Elvis pattern. Elvis Presley pattern.
That was part of the demonstration. Yeah, I remember. Yeah.
That was very funny. Very funny.
I think it's still available on YouTube somewhere, isn't
it? Yeah.
Okay, good stuff. So how in Australia then? How do you get to be involved in your Australian Taekwondo national team? How do you get a position into that, then, Tony?
So you talking about the Olympic style national team, or the team that we bring over to come and visit you guys?
Well, talk us through them both, if you could.
Well, we are part of Taekwondo Australia, which is the World Taekwondo affiliated group. So that's, part of the Australian Olympic Council and, the officially recognised body, because we do the WTF pattern still. We have a sport program which is Olympic style. So we do belong to that organisation officially. There is that organisation that has national championships and selections each year. So to get on a national team, you have to go to those competitions, obviously, and you have to win. Or they might have a series of competitions where you get points and you're ranked, and then they select the team for that. That's how they select the Olympic team that is on point rankings. And I'm not as much up with that anymore because I kind of retired from coaching from that set of rules or that sport probably 10 years ago. So we've just kept our affiliation and friendship with the TAGB and Taekwondo International, and when we just select our team in-house in Western Australia. So, and we have a club in Queensland as well, and we have put invites out to other groups in the past, but the ITF side of it's all split up these days around the world, isn't it? And trying to sort of attract people to select a team is a lot of work, and it's probably not necessary. I think the beauty of Taekwondo International and having the relationship with the TAGB is that it's open, but it's also it is non-political, and it's like a bunch of friends who are professional in running schools and developing TKD, and you end up with a massive pool of people, and you can attract other people from around the world, and you do get a really good competitive open world competition, I suppose. I still call it the Open World Championships,
Yeah, sure.
But yeah, you call it a World Championships, and under the semi-contact rules, point fighting, it's a great competition. So we just keep selecting from within our academy, which is ATI Martial Arts. So we are just an academy with about 2,000 members. So we're not massive, we're not, but we are one of the biggest groups in the country.
Would you say you're one of the biggest ITF organisations in Australia then, Tony?
I wouldn't say that, because we don't see ourselves as an ITF. We are probably classified as a WTF academy, but in all our classes, we never put on a chest protector. It's always put the gloves on, and it's always semi-contact ITF rules and sparring, because I think it's a bit of a rip-off if you say you're teaching Taekwondo or self-defense, and every time you go sparring, you put a hogu on instead of putting gloves in it, and a mouth guard in. You've got to teach people how to deal with other people punching you in the face, not just kicking. So we kind of worked that out early days, maybe 20-something years ago. And, we always spar in the ITF style rules because it definitely prepares people for real life confrontation more, or better.
Yeah, sure. And I suppose in terms of advertising for your club, at the end of the day, you've got to advertise, you've got to promote your club in the way that you're going to attract the right type of students, I suppose.
Yeah, sure. And well, you want people that want to learn a martial art, but you want people that, these days, what's the reason that people start? I suppose it's belonging to a group, it's socializing. Most of 70% of our members are kids. So it's character development, it's confidence, it's discipline, and it's definitely being able to defend yourself. So from my point of view, I didn't want to create a business model which did not teach people how to spar using their hands, or how to box, or how to fight with their hands. So, we do not want people that just want to do tournament fighting. We don't want people that just want to do Olympic sparring. We have that pathway, and I'm proud that we do have that pathway to Olympic selection. And we did have a girl by the name of Tina Morgan that was in 2 Olympics years ago. But in this day and age, it's more about the freestyle side of it, I think, that has more to offer.
Yeah.
Okay, just talk us through some of your competitive days then, Tony. You mentioned previously that, your first competition was a blue belt. When did you find yourself starting to win national competitions and international competitions?
Yeah, we're going back now. I went to my first national championships, and this was the Olympic style Taekwondo, and because that's all we did. That was in 80, what am I saying? 84 or 85. I fought as a blue belt and I got a bronze. And then I fought as a red belt in 86, and I won the nationals as a welterweight in 86. And then in 87, I was a black belt and I won that nationals. I basically went on a winning streak, and I don't necessarily think that's the best development, because it's better to lose more and to struggle. And I trained very, very, very hard. I had a great Korean instructor he was a bit of a psycho, and he was actually in the same Olympics as Ralph was, as Ralph Minot was. So he fought in the 88 Olympics. His name was Jinho Joe, and he was my mentor, and we trained 2-3 times a day. After I left high school, I deferred university and just trained full-time from the age of 18 right through to probably now. I ended up deferring university because I made the national team in 87. So I had my 4 fights as a black belt, got on the national team, went to the World Taekwondo Federation World Championships in Barcelona in Spain.
Okay.
And I fought my first fight, I won, and my second fight I lost, so I was out. And then that was 87. 88 was Olympic selection. I didn't compete for Olympic selection because it was the same division as my instructor. And in hindsight, I probably should have had a crack at it, but I didn't, and I ended up...
Would you have beat him?
No, I don't think I would have. No, not at that point. I think I would have been competitive, and you never know, but I don't think I would have. And I think a big part of that would be psychologically, and that's a big lesson for people out there, that psychologically you beat yourself, more readily than, based on ability. The psychological side is 90% of it, of course.
Of course.
But yeah, and then the next year I fought again, and I won. And then I went to Korea in 89 for the World Championships in Korea, and I had a great draw. I got the Korean World Champion first fight, so I lost that. There's a bit of a story there, but yeah. But I'll tell you this story because you can edit it out. But yeah, my instructor at the time, he said, "Look, if you're losing, because this is what he said. He said, you've got the world champion first fight. If you're losing, just punch him right in the face, And
it's like Karate Kid, isn't it? Yeah. Sweep the leg,
yeah,
Johnny.
I'm sure. Yeah, it was funny, but back in the day, we had a bit of an angst about the way the Koreans run things, and Dave will tell you all about it. There's some great Korean instructors, really good humans, but there was people who were very very greedy and also wanting to keep control of power. And to be honest, before my fight in Korea, one of the coaches, and I won't mention his name, but a Korean and Australian coach was basically laughing with the other Korean coaches about me, like pointing the finger and having a bit of a laugh. Instead of being with me and focusing on me, it was more like, oh yeah, obviously our fighters aren't that good because they're Australian. You know what I mean? That's the feeling we had. So we were quite annoyed about that. And we also got taken to a place called Dongsong High School, which was renowned for turning out world champions back in the day in Korea. And we had like full contact sparring 3-4 days out of the tournament. So none of us could, and I ended up having this massive fight, or a couple of fights with the high school team captain, and it was on, and my burst a blood vessel in my shin, and I had massive swelling in my shin, and we spent a few days in the spa and sauna just trying to recover. We could hardly walk 2 days before the World Championships. So what kind of coaches allow that to happen? Do you know what I mean? It's just so stupid. Anyhow, it's getting back to the story. My instructor said, if they're laughing at you, so if it's close, just crack him right in the head. So I was fighting this guy, and he was about 6'6", 6'5". He's a really tall, awkward Korean, and I'm bang on 6 foot, and I'm looking up to him. And the back in those days, it was hard to score points, but I think the score was 3-0 or 3-1 or 4-1, and I kind of remember what my coach said. So I thought I just sort of out of nowhere give him a big right, and dropped him. Of course, I've lost a full point, but then it kind of it shook him up a bit, and he was all right. He got up, and I was just running on adrenaline. At the end of the fight, I think the score was 5-2 or 5-1, and I lost convincingly. But afterwards, the coaches come up to me and said, "Oh, well done," and some of the other Korean guys were like patting me on the back, and I think it was because I didn't show too much respect or fear for the Korean, because back in those days everyone was scared of the Koreans, and I was too, but at the same time I was willing to have a go. So I remember that vividly. It was a good experience, but I lost my first fight at the World Championship, so it wasn't that great.
Well, again, it's having that mindset, isn't it, to be able to step in the ring against a tough opponent who you know's tough and have a sort of a game plan, I suppose, to a degree. Yeah. I mean, and then after that, I think the next year, my instructor back at that time, Ross Hartnett, who ended up being the Olympic coaching director for the Sydney 2000 Olympics, and a very smart Taekwondo brain, actually, Ross was a very hard trainer. He said, "Oh, look, I've been watching, I think it was the Battle of Atlanta, and might have been the Clash of the Titans, and the first Open World Championships," and he said, "Oh, I reckon we should have a go at that." So in the end, we kind of trained up for about 4 or 5 months, watching the video, the old VHS tapes back in the day that he ordered over from Dave Oliver, I think, and we started throwing back fists and ridge hands, which we've never done in our life. And then from there, we went in the 91 Open Worlds, and I had 6 fights in a day and I won. And I don't know how I did it, but actually I do know, because back then they made you wear, I'm pretty sure they made us wear all the macho gear. Is that right? Macho? It would have been macho gear. Yeah, it was, yeah.
And I definitely had a pair of macho boots on that were 2 sizes too big for me. And I definitely scored a couple of extra 3-point head kicks because of them.
Were you in the team that fought the England B team in the final? You guys have a team out there in the 91?
91. Yeah, we did, but we didn't get anywhere. We didn't medal, and we didn't medal. But we ended up going back. We went back to Leamington Spa. I think it was the next year. Would that have been 92 or 93? Leamington Spa, a European team competition.
92, I think.
Yeah, the Leamington Spa Centre.
Yeah, and we ended up getting, I think we got bronze. We got bronze there.
Okay.
At that one.
Yeah, it's a good venue.
And we did fight. Yeah, it was good, yeah, with the Spa Centre. And we did fight, because I fought light heavyweight in that one. And I fought Mark Weir in that comp. Yeah. And, yeah, we ended up getting bronze.
Yeah, it's a good fighter, Mark. And I bet you had a good scrap with him then.
Yeah. Oh, well, I didn't even know who he was, and I beat him. So everyone's like, "You beat Mark Weir." I'm going, "I don't know who he is. I didn't know who he was."
No,
so
I don't care. Come on.
It was funny, but it was good. Yeah, he was tall. It was awkward. And then the next year was '94, and I went back with our own team, and I parted ways with my old instructor then, and started our academy, and went back, and I had Hank Meyer came over and was doing some seminars. He's a good mentor of mine, Hank, and he graded us to 4th Dan, and we brought a team over, and then I won that one as well, and I think we got a couple of bronzes in that tournament at the '94 ones as well. So that was pretty much the end of my fighting, guys. '94. I did fight again, but by accident, because someone got injured on the day, so I jumped in Eindhoven at the Europeans there. And then I had a lot of problems with my ankles and hip, and I was running the academy, so I found it far too stressful to keep competing and dealing with injury,
It's a big commitment, isn't it? Actually competing, but also mentoring and coaching and trying to set your business up.
Yeah, very difficult.
So Hank Meyer brought the axe kick over to Australia, did he?
Oh no, that was a lot earlier than that. But Hank was amazing. Well, you guys will know Hank, and he refereed at the '94 Open Worlds. I remember him being a judge when Jim Grogan did his Elvis pattern, and he just about fell off his chair laughing. Hank, I'll never forget Hank laughing. I'll never forget it because it was very, very funny. But yeah, we had Hank over quite a lot, and I went over and did some training in Holland and went with Hank and spent time with him, and we took a team over to do a tour and went to his summer camp in Armeland, and yeah, I've had a good relationship with him over the years. Great guy, Great competitor.
Just take us back to your academy then, and Tony. Obviously, you said you started your academy. Is it 1994 you opened? Was that?
Look, it was going before that. I think.
Yeah, went full time presumably.
Yeah, when I went out on my own as a head instructor and parted ways with my old instructor, and I had a number because people would move on, and so you'd inherit a new instructor, and then so I had two. I had a New Zealander first, then I had a Korean instructor who's still a friend of mine now, and he was quite young at university, but he was a good guy. His name was Yong Ho He. He runs a school in Queensland now. And then I had Jin Ho Jo, who was one of my main instructors, and then I trained with Sotpong Kim, and then I started training with Ross Hartnett, and after Ross Hartnett, I just, we parted ways, and I formed my own academy, but I was running schools since 1988.
Okay.
So from 88, I started early. I was 18 and I started teaching and developing clubs, and so now we've got our academy that's done very well. We've got 4 or 5 full-time centres.
Brilliant. Has that been talk us through that sort of journey? And obviously I'm a full-time instructor, and Jackson's those are part-time instructor. We've still got quite a big school. Talk us sort of through the journey and building your clubs up, and some of the obstacles you've had to maybe go sort of deal with.
Well, I started with the one club that my Korean instructor said, I don't want to teach this anymore, because it was about half an hour away from his other main clubs. And did you want to take it? I went, yeah, sure. So I took it on. I think it had about 20 students then when I took it over, and I built it up to about 75 students. And just off the back of being on a national team, and I would promote that and, put a bit of marketing out there, and it did grow. And I was full-time from that point. And then I started another, what we call satellite clubs, operating out of rec centres or schools twice a week. We call them satellite clubs. And I had ended up with 5 of them. And then I met my business partner fishing up north one year. I said, you should come down to Perth. And he came down, and I helped him sort of find some venues and set up his own satellite clubs. And then we formed ATI, which back in the day stood for Australasian Taekwondo International, because I was at the meeting when they first set up TI. And that must have been 1994, I'm guessing. Or it might have been the British, because I went over and fought at the British Championships. It might have been then. But anyhow, yeah, kept building the satellite clubs. And then we went to America. We went to Florida for a UFC, an EFC convention, which was just a martial arts super show, and thought we would learn about how the Americans did it, and that they ran a lot of full-time schools.
Yeah, yeah.
And we sort of thought, yeah, we should do this. So I kind of blended two of my satellite clubs, and we started our first full-time school. And I honestly don't remember what year that was. It might have been 93, perhaps. I'm guessing. I'm not really sure. And then we decided to build and to start another one, which we've got now. And that's got, the one we've got now, the biggest one we've got now is in Joondalup, and that's got 600 students. So, you know, it's going well. It's that one venue with 600 students. Our first school, we ended up moving. We decided to buy a building. So we bought our own place, and that's got about 430 students now. And then the third one we opened, which again, they were all in areas where we had satellite clubs first. So that's the rule of thumb, I think, is have a strong base of 80 to 100 students.
Yeah.
Then, you know, you don't have to borrow money. You don't have to get a loan. You know, you don't have to have a mortgage. Lease a building. Do it so that it can't fail. You know, have that good, strong student base. And so we did that all along, and we did the fit outs ourselves, did all the building and the carpentry ourselves. Yeah, then we started our third one. That's got about 360 in it now. And then we've had a few students who have started doing it as well. So that was a journey, but it was really about pricing it right and attracting everybody, and not just being a tournament-based, competitive-based activity, because that puts a lot of people off, you know. So just being available to everyone.
We certainly find that in the UK, you know, both myself and Gavin, we run our clubs around a family activity. You know,
Absolutely.
Get the children in. Parents can come in and do an activity with their children, which is quite unique in any sort of type of sport. You know, you don't see 18-stone rugby players playing with their kids, do you? Not even in touch rugby, you know, which is non-contact. So, you know, the ability for parents to train and do an activity and develop and grow with their children, I think, you know, it's a real attractive thing in the UK for us at the moment, and that's what we market our clubs quite heavily on. Families that kick together, stick together.
Yep, that old cliche, but it's true. I mean, I think like you say, it's a valuable activity you can do with your kids. I mean, we have a fair few family classes where they can all train together, but most of our classes are age specific, and you know, we teach to the child's stage of development and their age. Yeah. But you know, because most martial arts commercial schools around the world who have got big numbers, it's mainly children, because, you know, parents make their kids train. Yeah. Not many kids stay involved because they want to. That there's obviously a percentage, you know, you might get about 30% like that, 40%, but the bulk is parents saying, this is good for you and you're going to do it. And because it is a parenting tool, it's a developmental tool. And you know, what we do, we're blessed to do what we do, guys, aren't we? You know, because, you know, we do that job that we love, so it doesn't feel like work, and we are passionate about it and we believe in it. And I'm sure all our own kids, I don't know, I mean, Jackson, you've got kids. I'm sure your kids have done it if they're not still doing it.
Both runs.
There you go. Yeah. My 18-year-old's only just stopped because she's right into her music and acting career, so she doesn't really have... She could have the time, but she's chosen not to. She did 9 years of training, and my twins are on their 8th or 9th year of training now. And, you know, as you know, I don't know, you remember my wife, Reva Bassi. She was a part of the Welsh squad and British team, world champion in '94. She doesn't train anymore, but she did a hell of a lot. So,
didn't you? Her away. You took her away from the Welsh squad.
That's right, I did, and you know, yeah. But she, you know, like she said, it's not the same. Your training's not the same, you know, and it is different. And every school, every academy, every school, even within an academy, is a bit different. But as long as the core structure is there and the person teaching is passionate and cares about people and helping people, you can't really go wrong. You know, what better an activity for kids and adults, really.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, I think it's Like I say, I mean, the thing is about martial arts as well for kids. I mean, it's got so many benefits. Obviously martial arts, the concentration, the discipline, all those things that come with it. Quite often you see kids really sort of, even if they give up martial arts later in their life, it certainly had an impact on them, hasn't it?
Oh yeah. I mean, I'm onto my third generation of students. I've actually got to a point where we're having the grandparents who trained with us to black belt, their kids, and now their kids coming in as little dragons at 3, 4, 5-year-olds. So, that's, I mean, I haven't been doing it as long as a lot of people, but now I'm getting up to around 30, going towards 38 years. You actually get to that third generation and you think, wow, it's just amazing. And one thing you never get, you never get people coming to you that you used to teach and say, oh, gee, I wish I never got my black belt with you,
Yeah.
But you have people coming back saying, gee, I wish I never give. And I just really annoyed that I gave up when I did. I should have kept going. And now I'm overweight and I don't feel energized. And but when you talk about benefits for people, I think the big thing for kids, and we're starting to talk about it more, is resilience. I mean, martial arts for everybody, it teaches you to be resilient because with the goal setting, you don't always pass. You don't always pass your grading, and you think you're going well, and then someone kicks you in the face, and or the instructor puts you in your place, and it teaches you to bounce back. And I suppose as long as you've got nurturing coaches and hopefully that support system at home where parents who believe in it say to their kids, no, you're going to keep going because it's good for you, or you might have, we do have membership contracts. So the parent will say, we've got 6 months left on your contract. You're doing it. You're doing this. And by the time that membership renewal comes around, more often than not, the kids want to continue because they've learned a lesson and they've grown in self-esteem and confidence, and they've had some success along the way, and it feels good, doesn't it? It feels good. So they want some more of it. So, and hopefully by then some of them have become competitive because that takes them to a new level of ability and skill set, and a new level of confidence and a new level of goal setting, because then they want to keep competing and winning. So we've got a great system for human beings to develop themselves, and that's why martial arts is so massive around the world.
Of course, and unfortunately, a lot of the school systems are failing in that aspect, aren't they? So that's why a lot of parents tend to bring them to martial arts schools. True.
Oh, because they can't. Yeah, they don't have the vehicle. I mean, Taekwondo or martial arts in general at any good school, but I can speak from Taekwondo's point of view, as you can. It's the best vehicle for teaching people respect, self-discipline. Goal setting is the big one. Because that's what's going to help them be successful in life, and that's why it's so popular, I suppose. So yeah, that's the vehicle. It's a vehicle for character development and teaching people to be better people. That's what I think.
Sure. Yeah. No, it makes perfect sense. And certainly in a society where there's so much instant gratification, everything's online, everything's instantaneous, having those goals, having those long-term visions and something to work for, I think is key. Because in the real world, as we all live in, and children are going to have to get into eventually when they start working full time, they'll soon find out very, very quickly not everything is instant. So you have to work for it. And I think martial arts gives you that fantastic platform to start nurturing children into that.
And that's you're exactly right. And I'm sure you're experiencing this. The problem we have now is we do have a generation of parents who, through no fault of their own, don't like it when their kids don't get that instant success, or, sometimes they'll say things like, oh, well, if they're not that good at it, we'll just pull them out. And I'll go, no, but that's the whole point. This is where you want to get to. You want to get to that point where you don't really want to get there, but if you get to that point where they say, I hate it, I don't want to go anymore, I'm no good at it, or I didn't pass my last 2 gradings or whatever, then, you want them then to deal with that and find a way to overcome that obstacle or that disappointment. But you need the parent to have that vision.
Have the support of the parent.
And in this day and age, there's more and more that just go, nah, move on. Let's just go to something else.
And it's so frustrating, isn't it? It's so frustrating when
it's very frustrating.
You know that the journey that they're going on, and you know that when they come out at the end of it, they're going to be better kids. They're going to be more confident kids. They're going to be better individuals. And because you go through that journey all the time with the kids in your schools, you can see it. But the parents, unfortunately, don't always see that. They just see it as a club. They've dropped their kid off and, okay, we don't like it, or good at it. We'll go and do swimming now or whatever. And it's,
The challenge is they'll hit those same hurdles in every activity they do, unless they're naturally fantastic at it.
Yeah. So, and how many people are like that?
Yeah, very true.
Yeah, how many people just jump in and they can do the splits and or know how to move, or have natural coordination. When you first start learning, it's difficult. Sometimes it's overwhelming.
Yeah.
Sorry?
Yeah. And that's why it's called learning.
Exactly. And we want, what I've found lately is, to have these conversations with beginners and parents about, martial arts is mainstream now. It's mainstream activity. It's not like it was in the 70s and 80s where, someone was a black belt. It was like, wow, can they walk on water kind of thing. It's just mainstream. So we find that talking to parents and adults about, like, what are your goals? I mean, let's talk about why you've called us in the first place. And then we'll revisit those goals when things get tough and remind them, what they wanted, and then say, look, it's tough now, but this is what you wanted. You wanted to feel, physically better and more energized. You wanted to feel more confident. You've got to be willing to go through the hard times to get that, because nothing worth having comes easily, really. You've got that. It's the struggle and the stress is what makes life interesting. If you didn't have that, you didn't have a reason to get out of bed, would you? You need a stress, you need a goal.
Yes.
So
I think to motivate you, don't you?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So on that, what motivates you? Clearly you're a passionate practitioner of martial arts. You seem a very, very credible and capable coach. So what motivates you to get out of bed in the morning, Tony, get into your academies and start driving these activities?
Yeah, I mean, primarily these days, I'd say it's my family and my girls. My 3 girls and my wife. I mean, that's everything to me. So having that healthy balance and that life balance, and can't have that without being happy yourself. So I love what I do. I get up, we train. Most days we train. So part of our work day, we train. So, and the training varies from basic Taekwondo training, lots of boxing, circuit work, hit training. Yeah. I mean, that motivates me to keep in shape. Now that I'm 50, I'm 51 now, I just want to be fit and healthy and agile and a role model for my students and my children when I'm 60. So that's a big motivator for me. Not to mention, staying healthy and feeling good. The motivator to go to work is really, we've built this amazing academy over 31 years, 32 years, I think it is, maybe 33 now. And we've got over 30 staff and 8 or 10 of them are full-time employees. So my motivator is to provide a good source of income for them. And I'm not satisfied with where it's at. So right now, we just took on a business coach recently, and my primary motivator is to get to work on the academy and have a lot more people training, because then we're doing a good thing for the community and I'm helping my loyal staff provide for their families and being able to buy their own home and all that. So that's a big motivator for me, and also to have an impact on communities and the general public, because like you were saying today, the school system, I think the hands are tied with how they can discipline children, what they can say to them. We can get away with a lot more in a martial arts school. We can be a bit tougher on kids.
Give them 10 press ups or make them stand in sitting stance for about an hour and a half.
Well, it didn't work on Gavin. If you've ever seen his sitting stance.
I can see you've got a bit of a twitch there, Gavin.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. You've got us on camera. You're going to get the right hook in a minute. Yeah, you can see it. All right. Okay, we're going to have to wrap up in a minute, Tony, because we're getting close to the end of the interview. But just one quick question before we sort of finish off. What advice would you give to a younger Tony?
Oh, that's a hard one, mate. I remember thinking about this question when you emailed it to me, and I've forgotten what I was going to say. To be honest, I do. Yeah, it must be. No, I do remember. I remember that sometimes, you know how you have those doubts and insecurities which prevent a lot of people from acting. Yeah. So we move away from fear and we'd rather stay comfortable. And my advice, and I say if I'm saying it to myself, maybe to have thought a bit different earlier, but I'd say it to other people and their kids, I suppose. And I do say this to parents and kids, be willing to take a few risks and look, and don't be afraid of looking bad, because everyone wants to look good. And even kids, they're afraid of what their peers think and feeling silly and all of that. And I think a lot of that comes from fear of looking bad or failure. Yeah. So you can't always listen to that little voice on your shoulders that says, oh, you'll get hurt, or you'll fail, or you won't win, or you'll look silly. And I think if you're willing to have a crack, if you're willing to have a go, you can achieve a lot more, and you'll learn by your mistakes quicker, And so I think it's more about, just not doubting yourself. And because that's when you make the errors, even if you get it wrong, you do grow. There's personal growth in failure. And unless we fail and embrace getting it wrong and failing early, and that's maybe losing your first few tournaments or not doing well in grading, then you do grow from that. And that's how you become a better person as well. And and then you have empathy as well for other people that aren't doing so well. And, you give them a pat on the back and some encouragement because you've been through it. So, I suppose it's not always listening to that instinct that says, oh, no, don't do it because you might fail. Just have a go.
It's that voice in your head, isn't it, that wants to keep you in your comfort zone. And where the reality of it is, it's when you're out of your comfort zone, that's when the growth happens, isn't it? That's where you grow.
Well, it is. We did some work with a sports psychologist before the 94 Worlds, because I was struggling. I went, let's get a sports psychologist. And we had some sessions. And, one of the things I learned was, your brain, the mind will accept negatives as easily as it will accept positives. So all you've got to do is positively reinforce your goals and affirm to yourself that you can do it, and as if you've already got it, as if you've already got that success. And it does manifest in the physical. It manifests in becoming reality, because you are what you think. We are what we think. Absolutely.
No, it's really, really, really good advice. Thank you very much, sir. And I think our listeners hopefully will take a lot away from that as well. So.
Okay, then, Tony, we're going to wrap it up there. Thanks very much for coming on to the podcast. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, boys. Boys. No problem.
I want to see a photograph you with your next beer in 10, 15
I think I might not be having one because I'm driving, but I enjoyed the one I had after a long day's fishing. So
it's a bit too early.
Hey, boys, I never got to tell you my funny story. You may not use it, but, when you talk about, what would you tell your younger self? Well, we did a demo at a high school once, and my old instructor was kicking apples out of my mouth. We had 6 apples, and on the 5th apple, he said, that's enough. And this is in front of about 500 high school students. Okay. And on the 5th apple, he goes, that's enough. I go, no, do the next one. It was a roundhouse kick. And I go, do it. You've got one more left. And I was kind of like muttering it under my breath to him. The kids couldn't hear it. So he's shaking his head, and I went, just do it. And I put it in my mouth. What happened on number 6? Crack. And my mouth just opened up. And it was like out of a horror movie, and there was spurts of blood flying out. And if you've ever heard 500 teenagers laugh their heads off, that was one of the more embarrassing moments, I can tell you.
So he knew his leg was fatigued.
Yeah. I probably should have listened to him. About 4 stitches later, it was fine. All stitched up. That's all right.
All right then, Tony. Thanks very much, mate. We'll catch up with you later, yeah?
No worries. It's a pleasure, boys. Thanks very much. I've enjoyed talking to you.
Thank you, Tony.
Cheers, buddy. Thank you.
See you soon.
See you, lads. Bye. Bye.
Yeah, bye-bye. Bye. I hope you all enjoyed this week's episode of the Motivated Martial Artist podcast. Don't forget to check out our Facebook page and our Facebook group, the Motivated Martial Artist podcast.
And don't forget also the Motivated Martial Artist Instagram page.
So head along for some extra content, interviews and much more.
So until next week, it's bye from Jackson
and Gavin,
the Motivated Martial Artists.